You are now listening to N21FM, a Pokemon podcast. I'm your host, Glenn, and I'm joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Johnny. And it is the night after EUIC has ended, and it's been a crazy weekend. Johnny, what do you think?
It was a wild one. I was I was digging some of these matches and man, what an EUIC. I think what a tournament in general is probably the best way to kind of describe it. I mean, we saw some really cool matches, some very devastating losses.
Really not so cool
matches. some not so cool ones, but man, it was I think this one is definitely kind of meta defining for sure. So
it's one for the books to be sure.
Yeah.
Some stats for the folks at home real quick. Across all three divisions, we had just shy of 4,000 players in London for this year's 2025 EUIC. That's 3,361 masters, which is nothing to like turn your nose up at. That's a substantial number of players. I think really big tournament.
I think we might have had the most number of masters in a tournament. I don't know for sure, but I was hearing some
right?
Yeah, I was hearing some like talk about it being like the biggest like
non-world
tournament,
probably.
Regional, international level type tournament that we've had.
I need to find out.
So I don't know where to find those numbers, unfortunately, beyond just kind of like poking around on Limitless, but it's, let me see. Yeah, I think this really was like one of the biggest ones outside of like Japanese tournaments that we've had in a long time. Yeah, pretty much. It really kind of looks like that. Like outside of like Worlds, outside of Japanese stuff.
True, because Japanese players be getting 5,000 players. Yeah, that's all they've got.
They've right. They basically get like a couple of Champions Leagues and a bunch of huge tournaments, or a few huge tournaments, but not too much else. Yeah, I think going back through the last couple of years, that's what it looks like.
Awesome. Before I forget, visit patreon.com/terminal creative to get early access to every episode, as well as our bonus show N21 Plus every single week that we're able to get those out. That's our bonus show where it's a little more chill, and we just have a lot of other fun there. Not always necessarily about Pokemon. Sometimes, frequently actually about Slay the Spire. Please go over there, give us some support there, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the video, give us a 5-star rating on Spotify if you're listening there. All of that good stuff. It helps us out a lot.
We really appreciate it.
It's super helpful. We're actually inching towards 50 subscribers on the YouTube channel right now, which is pretty big. I'm trying to get a deck video out sometime this week about the future hands deck, which I could see at least like being fun to play in the near future. I don't know how good it's going to be, but it'll be fun. And people seem to like the deck showcase video last week, so I'm going to go for it again.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely I think that deck will be a fun one to highlight too, because
I think so.
Man, that's a cool deck. If you haven't ever had a chance to play it, then keep an eye out for that video, and maybe you'll start dropping it around too.
You should. But that deck was unfortunately not featured at all in EUIC this year.
No.
But there were some really cool decks featured. There was some lame ones, like 2 Snorlax stalled in top 8. But there was also some cool Dragapult players, some really interesting, a lot of Golden Go this tournament, actually. Surprisingly, really interesting. The best finish was 3rd place, piloted by Xander Pero.
Yep.
And then probably the hot topic of this tournament was the Cloth Terapagos deck, piloted to 1st place by Ryuki Okada with I can't say an incredible win, with a win in finals against Natalie Miller and her Dragapult Dusknoir deck. Congrats to Ryuki, congrats to Natalie for making it to finals. Do we want to start with finals, or do we want to like talk about the other cool stuff that happened during days 1 and 2 before we handle that finals game?
I think we should just jump right into finals.
Okay.
That's the big one that everyone wants to talk about,
Yeah,
and then we can go down some other highlights from there. But
sounds good to
yeah,
me.
finals, man.
Oh, geez. So if you did not catch the live stream for finals, oh, let me adjust my mic real quick. Sorry for the audio listeners. All right. Um, the finals match this year was Cloth Terabagos versus Dragapult Dusknoir. And the finals match itself lasted a total of, or like the whole game, right? So like all 3 games, finals match, lasted probably what? Like,
See if I could find that final number
oh,
there.
wow. So the entire set lasted less than 30 minutes, I want to say.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
If that.
I think the last number that you see here is something with we kind of speed. Yep. They announced match win right around the 49-minute and I think like 45 second mark, something like that. So yes,
it is
short.
So like set up and tear down for the finals match took 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It was brutal. The cause of this was Ryoki Okada's just prepared deck building against Natalie Miller and some really unfortunate draws on her part. Game 1 was over almost as quick as it started. Natalie starts with Pheasantipity EX in the active, and she's going first. Goes draw pass, and Ryuki is able to pretty much do everything he needs to do to get Cloth in the active, attach double turbo, and then knock out Pheasantipity because of that fighting weakness.
Yep.
Really, really unfortunate way, like start to the match, but normally you assume, okay, I can come back from this. This is totally winnable. And in game 2, if you want, like, you can talk about game 2. It'll give you more to talk about for sure.
I think game 2 was really cool to watch, but man, watching Ryuki just kind of like manhandle the match, so to speak, through the whole way. Natalie only took 1 prize up until the very end of it.
Yeah.
But man, the Cloth Terapagos deck, it just kind of goes because it's got some really good attackers. It relies on that Badoo right now. It's kind of funny. We call it Cloth Terapagos right now. There's only 1 Cloth, and there's like 2 Badoo in this deck.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just was man, it really looked like Natalie was just gonna take an unfortunate, 2-0 loss.
Yeah.
But she was able to pull it out right at the end with some pretty quick thinking, getting Dusclops in play, benching or playing an Iono to kind of hand disrupt, and then go from there to capitalize on a pretty smart. I believe it was a pretty smart play with just attacking with Pult and placing some damage counters, and then the next turn
she did was incredible on that play.
Yes, it was insane, and then to kind of like, get Badooed in the following turn, because Ryuki didn't really have much that he could do to get Badooed, and then Natalie top decking a Luminion.
Yeah,
that was the sickest thing ever. That was so cool. Just top decking Luminion, dropping it, grabbing boss, and then
board wiping him. Truly,
pretty much. It was pretty much just a true board wipe.
She took what, 4 prizes that turn?
5 in a turn. 5 prizes.
Holy
all
smokes.
At once. Yes, it was. I think it was a boss drops the bosses up the Oranguru that
That had
she
10
had
on it from the
placed,
previous turn,
yep,
right?
she'd placed 10 on it, and then she placed 4 on the Radiant Hisui and Sneasler.
Ooh,
And then Klops
ooh.
against the, Klops. It was Klops against the Sneasler.
Pops into the
Punch
Sneasler
Guru,
for the
and
KO.
then put the last
Damage on Sneasler, Badoo, and what was the last one?
No, it was just Sneasler and Terapagos, because the Terapagos
Oh, that's right. The Terapagos was low.
The Terapagos was low. I think it was.
It had 10 left because of the poison, because he used it to attack really early in the game.
Yes. Yeah, it didn't have. Let me see. It's hard to see on the video after it gets pulled back. There we go. Yeah. It had exactly 10 left, and then just being able to drop the Klops on the Sneasler to set it to 90, and then dropping the extra 4 needed there and the extra 1. Oh
Absolutely,
man, that was
crazy play.
That's the kind of play that Dragapult players love to make, because that's just, it highlights how good of a deck Dragapult is when it comes down to the wire. This deck can make, it's such a good deck at capitalizing on like board state in a way that like a lot of other decks like aren't necessarily as good at, and just that explosiveness where like even early game, if you take like an early lead with Pult, it's very hard to come back against. And if Pult has an early lead taken against it, it can always, if it's still able to play through its game plan, it still can absolutely always set up and swing back exactly like this. Yeah.
Because at one point Natalie had what, like a single cloak and a cloak in a dream?
Yeah.
Pretty much. It was just absolutely crazy play. It shows you how incredible that deck can be if piloted well and the right circumstances arise, right? Because you got to also think like Ryuki plays Monkey Dory in this deck. I don't think it ever really came up, but like Ryuki plays a ton of cards that make it very hard for, like it can make it very hard for Dragapult to do well. And in fact, the casters on the stream talked about it, how Ryuki has played really well against a bunch of Dragapults in that same tournament. And Natalie had played really well against several cloth decks that tournament. And so like the kind of what was going to happen is like one of them was going to be like just having their off day, their single off game, and be the exception to the rule where they just get smoked by the other deck. And unfortunately, that did happen to be. I'm not gonna lie. I'm biased for sure. I was rooting for Natalie Miller.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just like she's an incredible player, and I think she's due a win by now.
Yes,
at least I'd say so.
It's been a couple of years, I think, since Natalie's had like a first place regional win, or like large tournament first place win.
Well, that's her best performance since
she's had
ever, really.
Yeah, she's definitely had some like crazy good performance in the past, and just to kind of see like this season, especially, I think this season she's just been kind of on an upswing.
She's been on fire. She hasn't had a placement less than top 16 since this year, in fact.
Yep, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that's not this year. That's 2024.
Well, and it's I know it's also tough for like the Australian players to get around to a bunch of stuff,
especially with OCIC gone. RIP.
Yep. Please play Pokemon. Bring back OCIC.
Please bring back OCIC.
I won't be going probably because that's an expensive trip, but
that'd be sick.
I just want to watch. I want to see.
Australian players are
Australian
bananas.
Players. Yeah, I want to see the Australian players, the Oceania players, the New Zealand players. I want to see all of them just have some like crazy games together, because you see like some outstanding sick players come from that region of the world, and it's so incredible to see it kind of see that culminate in Europe of all places. Absolutely, so please bring that back so we can see that more than once a year.
This is all the more reason for you guys to support us over at patreon.com/terminal creative. If we can get to like probably like 2,000 supporters. If we can get high enough, we'll do a live show in OCIC if they bring it back.
Absolutely.
Actually, that'd be
100%.
We should do a live cast in Worlds either this year or next. That's just I just thought of that.
That would be very sick.
I think that'd be cool,
That's
but just something to think about.
yeah, absolutely. Oh
Um,
man, but
jeez.
yeah, just watching that second game like culminate in like such a cool win for Natalie, and then the
Mhm.
very unfortunate
The
third game.
finals was evil. It was so sad because,
Yep.
and here's where it gets like it's bad. Here's where I know some conversation started in our circle in the Greater Charlotte Discord as a result of this game. So
Yes.
I'll go through kind of what happened, then we'll talk about it.
Hmm.
Ryuki goes first. Going into game 3, he starts Orangu V,
Hmm.
and Natalie Miller starts with a single Dreepy in the active, and you can see on her face that she's experiencing like all 5 stages of grief at the same time,
Yep.
because she's like, oh well, this is it, I
Yep.
guess. Because as you watch Ryuki back order Forest Seal Stone and Ancient Booster Capsule, go get the Precious Trolley, go get all the guys, and just promote Pecharunt, poison the active, and win EUIC before Natalie has a chance to even draw her first card.
Yep. Yeah. It's devastating to watch. It's just what, man. I'm actually like I've got the video going right now. She picks those cards off the top, and you could just
Yeah.
see she's not super thrilled. And I'm pretty sure Ryuki has a face there where he's like, I think he sees what he has and
Yeah.
sees what Natalie has, and is just like,
His
yep.
third eye is open. He's like, oh my God.
He's just like I have it. This
He's
is it.
shaking
And then
as he's
yeah,
playing too.
absolutely. Because I mean, and why wouldn't you, man? This is like the most exciting just like win ever
Yeah.
for him for sure.
For
Because
sure.
because he's just like, oh, I have
He's like,
like
I've got it.
I have everything I need. I play, he plays down heavy ball just to double check his prizes
just
and
to make sure
sure
nothing's there.
nothing's
He had
there.
everything
Yep.
he needed to destroy her turn 1.
Mm-hmm. And then yeah, just immediately does exactly what he needs to do. Orangaroos, back orders for what was it, Sealstone, and Sealstone, Ancient Booster, Sealstone for Trolley. Like he doesn't even need to go for the Area 0 in this one.
Yeah.
Just trolleys out the Brute Bonnet, the Baby Pecharunt, and the Latias, and
It's so sad.
and the Sneasler as well. I think I don't even think
Sneasler's
he needs to go
mandatory.
for the Sneasler. Is it?
Yes,
So it's
Sneasler's
2,
mandatory for that math.
5. Yes, it is. Yeah, and the Sneasler. So yeah, it just gets the squad out. Latias uses Latias to let Orangaroo retreat and get Petron up there, poison, and that's it. That's game right there. It's a minute. It took a minute. I don't even think it actually took a full minute. I think the game is less than a minute of time.
I'm watching the playback right now. It is so sad, and it leads me to kind of be concerned with, and this seems very I don't want to say dramatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems very reactive to say this, and it very much seems like, oh, I'm just bummed because this player I was rooting for lost when she could have won. The fact that I don't think it's unreasonable to say that perhaps Baby Pecharunt should be banned. And here's the reason behind that, right? So Pokemon in the past, right, has always, actually I'll pull up the expanded ban list right now, has always gotten rid of cards because they are unfair to play. They feel unfair to play against. They are extremely potent, right? And they limit your opponent's interaction with the game, right? You see that in something, or like they take away a win con. But like you see like that featured in like Let Loose Marshadow, where you can just play that down turn 1 and immediately limit your opponent's hand.
Yep.
You see that in what is this? Well, that one takes away. Oh yeah, like reset stamp, like being an item card, just being able to unfairly just destroy your opponent. You see that in the recent Scoop Up Net ban where they were like, no, this is too potent in combination with Iron Valiant EX.
Yeah. I mean, Scoop Up Net, like, just enables a ton of just absolutely degenerate plays and expanded because of how disgusting it is with that. I mean, even with Iron Valiant, when that card came out, I know a lot of people groaned collectively because they were, and to be fair, there's maybe some merit to it, right? Like, Iron Valiant absolutely enabled some degenerate like donk strategies.
Sure.
I remember playing my fair share of Iron Valiant games on live, and if I saw someone who benched like a Pokemon that was like 60 HP, I would absolutely like gun for that turn 1 donk, against it, because like why not? There's no reason not to in live,
Right,
but
certainly.
It's also Valiant was also a card that, because of the nature of it, at least required effort to get the donk, right? Like, and I don't say that like Hecharon doesn't require effort necessarily, but
it's different though.
Yes.
And I don't even really want to compare the two, because ultimately I think both cards are probably poor design, right? I think free damage on your opponent's board before they can even have a turn is not good for the game, right?
Yeah.
We don't like, that's not something that I like sets a good precedent. Maybe in the exception of like Gapejaw Bog is fine. You know why?
Yes.
Because you can play around it, kind of.
Yes.
And also it's pretty inconsequential, and it is something that happens when you play a card.
Yes.
Not like
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. It's like, it's something that happens because you play, not something that your opponent can handle before you've even drawn your first card.
Yes.
And that's ultimately kind of the problem, right? Is this game, some of what I love about Pokemon is that it is very it is much more grounded than a lot of other trading card games, right? Like, I never played Yu-Gi-Oh, but I have heard and also watched gameplay of Yu-Gi-Oh where it's like, if you don't go first, you lose the game because you just watch a cutscene of your opponent playing and then you lose.
Yep.
I know Magic the Gathering is a little less so, but like Pokemon specifically is this really cool, complex game with a lot of interaction, turn over turn between you and your opponent, where you can outplay your opponent can outplay you, and you can just figure out where to go based on what you draw and what happens when you're able to play cards, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But when you're taking your opponent's like interaction with the game away, there's a problem. Especially in a format, and like, don't get me wrong, it would still be bad for the game even if it was a big basic meta, right? But especially, it's exacerbated by the fact that we're in a meta that requires a lot of setup.
Yes.
Which I'm grateful for, because that means like now there's more eyes on it. I don't think, granted, we are certainly not going to see this card banned.
No.
But it is something that should inform creatures as they design cards for the future, because it's just unacceptable that the finals of this game was decided because Natalie couldn't draw a second Pokemon.
Yeah.
To start
for
with.
Sure.
Because she plays plenty. She plays, what's her deck list? She's got 4, 3, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. A fifth of her deck is Pokemon. Is basic Pokemon. She has every reason to be able to, like, it's not like she's playing Quad Thorns, but the Quad Thorns are all 70 HP. You know? A fifth of her deck is Pokemon. Drawing 7 cards, she should be able to hit 2 Pokemon.
Yeah. And it's
unfair that she loses because she didn't draw 2 guys.
Yeah, and it's not quite the same as like losing in that first round, where the first round was just an unfortunate hand to start, and
Yeah,
then an unfortunate draw off the top, coupled with a going against a deck that absolutely can capitalize on weakness. I think that's part of the game. I think, capitalizing on a weakness, capitalizing on a high attack threshold, I mean,
right.
it would be the same as if she had started any of the other basics in her deck against that in the first round,
Certainly.
if
Well, and
if
it's
the
also that like Cloth. That's what makes Cloth a good attacker, is that it's good into
exactly.
two of the major support Pokemon played in a
Hmm.
lot of good decks.
Exactly. Like Cloth still would have taken the KO against Rotom. It would still have taken the KO against a Radiant Alakazam. It still would have even taken the KO against Lumineon V as a
Right.
start. And that's like, to me, that's okay. Yeah, but
That's just variance, and it
hmm
happens.
hmm
But
this
having
is
access to a play that limits your opponent's ability to play the
mhm.
game before they can draw their first card is unacceptable to me.
Yeah, I can totally get that. And I don't think that when they created the baby Petulant card, I don't think there was a thought process on, oh well, this card is going to be part of this extremely broken archetype that's, or not, maybe not an extremely broken archetype, but an extremely a relatively deviant strategy that capitalizes on being able to beat your opponent before they have the chance to play the game.
Right.
Um, I think that when they built it, they said, "Oh, poison is a cool interaction, and we don't have enough poison interaction in the game. What if we put in a card
That
that
boosts poison.
that boosts poison and it has a really cool attack. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
it's
Like,
got a cool
that's
attack.
it's. I actually really like the card for the attack, more than the ability. But yeah, it's the fact that that ability, yeah, just absolutely kind of takes all of the agency out of the game for the opponent.
Right. Like, because that's the thing, is like there was no option for her to outplay her opponent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Aside from like the only solution there was like just draw a
Draw
second
better.
Dreepy in your opening hand, like draw a second Dreepy, draw another Duskull, draw the Badu along with the Dreep, like something. And
Yeah.
that's just, yeah. Yeah. That was, and even I'll be honest, even then, if there was like just draw a second Dreepy, like, I don't know what her hand was, obviously, but like,
Right.
even if
But
she had two
she
cards
knows
down,
also,
that
she
still
knows
would
this
have been,
deck.
yeah,
She's an
yeah,
exceptional player. She knows the deck. If she had a second guy, she would have played him.
yeah. Well, no, what I'm saying is that like even if she had a second Pokemon to play down, I still think that the whole kind of turn one for Ryuki,
Yeah.
like donk into that, would still have actually been very still just not very
Not good.
unfortunate, because it still sets Natalie up immediately against a disadvantage. It accelerates the prize trade to a turn where the race doesn't normally start, and so it immediately puts Ryuki in an extreme advantageous point, and that's
Yes.
why I feel like I want to go back to like the Iron Valiant stuff with that, because like at least with like I said, with Iron Valiant you could race for the donk, but the whole at the time that was out, the race for the donk with Iron Valiant was you had to, and it wasn't necessarily impossible, but it's more the effort it took, right? You had to be able to open with a hand that could get you 3 to 4 Iron Valiants off the start,
Right.
as well as switch cards and a squawk ability, or
Right.
in some combination of that, to get your stuff.
Yeah.
And at the time we had Escape Rope, and I think at its worst we had Prime Catcher in the same
Hmm. We also had
time,
Battle
but
VIP Pass.
we did have Battle VIP Pass too. At the same time, you couldn't use Prime Catcher unless they had another Pokemon on their bench. So Prime Catcher was a
Right.
non-issue if they started a single Pokemon. Um, but yeah, being able to, even with being able to battle VIP, being able to get your Squawk ability out, being able to get your Valiants out, you still had to kind of dig through about 13 cards to try to find your switches, switch cards, and escape ropes. And
Hmm.
even with those, you weren't necessarily guaranteed those, especially once people realized that, that was a strategy. They started playing higher HP basics, very much in the same vein that they started playing the higher HP basics against Dragapult in order to dodge a Pult KO off of Phantom Dive. They started playing 70 HP instead of 60 because 70 meant that you needed one more switch card. And that might have been the difference. So I wasn't like, even with that, I didn't feel like that was too bad. Yes, getting Donk sucked, but like it wasn't. It was never. It also was never part of a deck that was quite as potent, I think.
Right. Well, and I think it's also got to do with the fact that like it is the perfect storm because here's why, right? With the cards that are currently in rotation, it is the perfect setup for there to be this crazy combo that is low entry, like very little cost, right? All you have to do, put Oranguru V in the active and you have the play.
Yeah.
Because that's all he needed. Like you Forest Sealstone and Ancient Booster, Forest Sealstone for Precious Trolley, grab your Latias, your Petch, your Hisuian Sneasler, and your Brute Bonnet. That's 4 guys.
Yeah.
And then you win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
just for having Oranguru active.
Yeah, it's really not hard to do that. And even if you don't start the Oranguru, the deck, because it runs 4 Nest Ball, 4 Nest Ball, 3 Ultra Ball, and the Trolley,
you can probably get what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely can probably end up grabbing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, just very unfortunate. This deck is going to have a target on its back for sure, I think.
Oh, certainly.
In the coming weeks. I think that I mean, we mentioned this before we started recording, but everyone on live is going to start running this because it's going to that's the tournament effect. Tournaments,
that's just live.
Tournaments mean that live is going to pick up or this deck will pick up steam on there, and so you'll probably see decks that counter this start picking up steam again. Shortly afterwards.
Enjoy some Raging Bolt.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're gonna end up seeing come back. It's gonna be Raging Bolt. It's gonna be, oh man, it's just gonna be a lot of like jank.
Yeah, truly. But yeah, I think we've harped on this quite a bit enough. Ultimately, like kind of in short, I think Petrarunt should have been designed better. I think that should have been on like a stage 1 if you're going to have an effect like that. Or just something like that, because that ability is egregious and it doesn't go away with rotation, because while it will become harder to accomplish, you will still have Brute Bonnet, Ancient Booster Capsule, Petrarunt with the Toxic Subjugation ability, and then Perilous Jungle will just be the new piece that they get, rather than Hisuian Sneasler. So
and I kind of envisioned like Oranguru and Lumineon leaving, and someone is just going to say, okay, well, with that, we just streamline the deck a bit, tech it out a little less, and then do stuff like throw in, even without Force Seal, throw in like Call Bells and stuff like that to just get like the pieces that you need. Almost certainly you'll see something. Heck, I mean, even with like Terrapagos being in the build, you might just see like someone craft just someone might just craft like an owl build of this and use owls instead to get the pieces. Because
granted, after this format rotates, like Double Turbo will be gone, so this deck will cease to exist. But the combo of Baby Petch with Perilous Jungle with Brute Bonnet will still be around. Yes. And that is just something to be like keep an eye out for, because it just doesn't seem good for the game. God, let's move on. I'll get so bummed out if we keep talking about this. We've already harped on it for 30 minutes.
For sure.
Oh jeez.
In other news about the tournament, Goldango saw a surprising resurgence in popularity at the 5th most successful deck with about 8% meta share.
Is that on day 2 or total?
It's what's listed on Limitless, so I'm assuming maybe that's, I don't know if that's total numbers or day two. I think Limitless has total numbers with that, but it might just be day two. This might just be day two numbers.
I see 30 of them in day 2 at least.
Yeah, so
8% of the meta share.
Yeah, so that's probably just day two numbers then.
Okay.
But I mean, that's still like an 8% meta share in day two is very substantial. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting that, especially with like Badu in format being this, wall against items, basically. Like Goldengo is a deck that seems so reliant on items, but I think maybe just the fact that like I don't really know. I don't know if like they adapted to start going second and focus on
play.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like a TM Evo play was much of a thing. I'm wondering if maybe they just went second just to avoid getting item locked and instead pushed like a bunch of Gimme Ghoul on like turn one. Basically, you just push a bunch of Gimme Ghoul turn one, you get your Radiant Greninja down, you get your Cypher Maniacs, going so that you can draw into exactly what you need. And I think Cypher Maniac absolutely is maybe part of the other reason why this deck can do so well is if you can set up like a good next turn and avoid getting item locked, you can immediately come in with your Energy Search Pro and just capitalize on that.
Or even consider that you can just you can very easily just Cypher Maniac for like if you're going second and it's your first turn, Cypher Maniac like a Buddy Poffin and whatever else you need, and concealed cards, and then you've got exactly what you wanted.
Yep, exactly. And then the fact that like even with once you have like one Goldengo in play, I mean you're drawing at least one card extra per turn too if it's in the active. You can Cypher Maniac. Like if you get item locked by a Badu, all else fails, you Cypher Maniac the energy that you need, right onto the top of the deck, Goldengo to draw into those, and then just pop one energy to drop the little Brussels sprout, and that's move on to the next thing. Like it's,
or even like they're now playing the Monkey Dory just because you already play every energy. You play the Monkey Dory, you just move that damage off onto a Badu, never have to worry about it again.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I think there's a lot of like good things that it has going for it. I'm seeing most of these lists that like are running the Monkey Dory at least are just putting in like anywhere from like 1 to 2 darkness energy. They don't need a ton,
Yeah.
But and then they still have options like we see, let's see. I mean, Xander Pero did a pretty straightforward version of the list with just 4 Gimme Ghoul, 4 Goldengo, and then Dory for the Holt damage, Iron Bundle to force switches, and then the usual Radiant Greninja and Pheasantipity draw combo to help accelerate the deck. But there's other lists out here. Yell Van Kampen did the Palk build, which we love to see that. The Palkia V-Star
Palkia V-Star.
Powers itself up, powers up your Radiant Greninja for double bench snipes. Like this deck is still a really good deck.
Yeah,
like
it's very good. I don't take the deck very seriously, and I think that's probably a problem. Like, it's everyone's like, oh, it's just silly, like it's fun, it does it's big damage, it's gimmicky, but like the results do speak for themselves, especially that now that Energy Search Pro is in the format, you do get a glimpse of like, oh, this is maybe real, especially after rotation, but that's a whole other thing.
I think it's especially like telling too with the fact that like so many players I think will always say, man, what happened to Chin Pao? That's a sentiment I hear a lot. What happened to Chin Pao? Why did Chin Pao fall off so much? And like I think everyone can tell why. But Chin Pao
never good.
Chin Pao was always treated as a very real deck.
Yeah.
And then Goldengo has been treated as this kind of like, the I guess redheaded stepchild, so to speak.
Truly.
It's like it's really unfortunate. It's not a deck that I particularly enjoy playing, just for personal playstyle preference. It just doesn't
Sure.
it doesn't scratch the itch that I like personally. And I feel the same way about like Chin Pao and Raging Bolt. A lot of those like kind of turbo into your energies and hope that you get what you need to kind of like
Yeah.
drop something. It's not quite what I want, but I think Golden Go is clowned on way too much compared to the other two.
Certainly.
Bolt is incredibly real still. I still think Bolt is a very good like average pick.
Yeah.
And I think that Chin Pao had a time where it was a fantastic deck.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, maybe we do see another resurgence of Golden Go. I think this is a deck that it's like you're gonna see maybe like once a format, you know.
Yeah.
You're gonna see a resurgence of Golden Go, and then it might
Yep.
fall off again, and then you're gonna see it resurge again, and then it might fall off. Maybe it goes a format where it's not, you know, super popular, but
Certainly.
yeah.
But like it's a good deck. It's a cool deck. You don't lose a lot when you get item locked, which is what's important about it, because you do also just get to draw into other cards.
Yes.
Because of just the nature of coin bonus as an ability.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. A lot of people didn't take it seriously, but I mean, a lot of decks, even when they're like, especially when they're not taken seriously, that's their biggest strength. I mean, look at Cloth. I don't respect Cloth Terapagos as a deck. I'm not even afraid to say that. I also don't respect like Archaladon Dialga really. Like it's a fine deck. It does some things very well, but I don't think it's ultimately the best deck. I don't think it has what it takes to be a top deck, you know?
For sure.
Like I don't respect those decks in the same way. Like I don't respect Golden Go for that same reason. It is linear. It does one thing particularly well, and then the rest of it is just, well, good luck, you know?
Yeah, very much so.
But it's decks like that have the best chances of doing really, really well. Especially like look at Palkia Noctowl when it took over 2 regionals without anybody thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I that was still one of the best days of my life, is waking up on my birthday and seeing a top cut of so much Palkia.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's, man.
It was a great day.
Someone bring that on the run back one more time, please.
Please. One more.
It's not dead, I swear.
It's not dead. It's not dead. Just put in a Surfer and a Lanazade and you're good.
Yep.
And then also, speaking of decks that are under-respected but also very, very good, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna tap the sign here. Lost Zone's very good. Lost Zone Sablezard, very good. Don't listen to Grant Manley. Grant Manley is a goofball.
I was hoping you would.
Grant Manley played the Pikachu Pheasantipity Blood Moon one. Don't play that version. Play Sablezard. It's better.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people came to this with Lost Box Pikachu, if they brought Lost Box at all. And that's very unfortunate because
it's just worse. It's a worse deck.
It really is. This, like, Pikachu has a target on its back the second it hits the board.
I'm looking at that's delicious to me. That is just like lost mine. Let me leave 10 right here. I'm coming back to that.
Oh, actually, we go for 40 on it. Always go for 40 on it.
Why 40?
Because they're gonna switch card off, and you want to still have 10 left over.
That's smart.
Gotta leave 40 on it. That's
true.
Because I absolutely love when I play like Reggie's, I love when people play Dragapult and they drop like a little bit of extra, they drop like the 1 right there on that Pikachu. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let me just put this up to start. I'm gonna switch card it and then attach retreat off the Greninja that I moved up. And man, suddenly this Pikachu, it's not so free the next turn for you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But Lost Box Pikachu is bad. Don't play it. Play Sablezard. Stop putting 2 prizers in Lost Zone. Stop it. I see you doing it. I see you. Stop.
Oh man, but I do like to see Lost Box get an exceptionally even
Cool
if
to
it
see
is
it
the
do well.
suboptimal build. Yeah, Grant brings it to 11th place at this tournament. I think you're gonna have a few people catch back onto Lost Box. They're gonna get the Lost Box bug again because it's a fun deck to play. Like I think any version of Lost Box, regardless of how good or bad it is, if you're playing Tina, it's terrible. But
yeah, if you're playing Tina, you should quit.
It is still a fun deck. I will still play Tina over that Cloth Terrapagos deck because Lost Tina is still a fun deck.
Dude, I've got the Anniversary Dragon Shields. Not sponsored, by the way. I've got the Anniversary Dragon Shields, and they are the perfect color for Lost Tina because they've got, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but it's got that sick red and a gorgeous gold to go with it. And I'm like, this is perfect for Tina.
Yeah,
and
that's
yet,
the color combo.
Tina sucks.
It's very unfortunate.
Bad deck.
But yeah, I think Grant did a cool job with this. I like the list. I like the fact that, you know, Grant said, yeah, let me put that Gigas in, you know?
Dude, so good. It's a good card.
I do think that if you're gonna play Lost Box at this point, you should be running a Gigas in it because it's very little investment to like have to get a Gigas powered up and going, especially if you're playing Grant's list. Like I will say the one downside about Sablezard is that because the energy count is so low, it is sometimes much harder to get the double gate onto Gigas, or even like
you have to be so careful with your Lost Zone picks if you're gonna double gate to Gigas. Yeah,
but I think that because if you're gonna play Grant's list, for what it's worth, it's not a bad choice because you can gate to Gigas, you can gate to you can double gate to it, you can double gate with only 3 energy and then attach a jet and push it up. Also, shout out like to Grant again for putting the jet in there, recognizing that the jet is the answer. Jet is the answer to Badoo. It's absolutely the answer.
Gets smoked by jet energy.
Like I love dropping a good jet energy against someone who Badoos you when you're playing Lost Box because it's just like they're like, oh, you're not going to be able to do anything next turn. You're not playing switch out cards, and you're right. No, I'm not. I'm playing jet energy instead, and still getting 3 in the Lost Zone off of Comfy.
It's like so good.
I'm still keeping my numbers up.
It's so good. This will just turn into another Lost Zone Sablezard video if we keep on about this. Back to EUIC. Grant Manley had an exceptional Lost Zone box list. I still think it's suboptimal, but
for sure.
Well, and also, hold on, I'm gonna go back on it. Another reason that you should be playing this is because Sablezard is because if you do have to double gate, your other Pokemon aren't hurting for it. In the current Lost Zone box with Pikachu and all the other 2-prize goobers, if you double gate to like a Hands or a Regigigas, what are you gonna do when you don't have 2 more gates to attach to the other guys? Anyway.
No, absolutely. No, those are honestly that's always correct. I think like I like his inclusion of Crispin in this for, you know,
Crispin
kind of mitigating some of that. I think the Crispin include in Lost Box, especially if you really are gonna run this version, Crispin is a good version. I've considered Crispin in Sablezard just because
don't give in.
It's a good card, but
it is a good card though.
But yeah. Glad to see the Lost Box is slowly, you know, coming back up after Badoo comes out and pushes
people are realizing
Regidrago away.
What's crazy though is there's still like a surprising amount of Regidrago in this tournament. There's like way more than there should be.
Yeah, for sure. Regidrago saw just under 2% on day 2, which
Put more Badoos in your deck. Bully Regidrago players until they quit the hobby.
I mean, it's what was the highest placing
decks.
There were 2 fairly high. There were 2 top 32 Dragos. At EUIC.
One just outside of top 16.
Yep. Quite literally, like a 17th and a 20th place. Like Drago has not completely fallen off, and I think more people need to be playing Badoo to keep it out of there. Please play Badoo hatred. So I can farm it with Sablezard, and so that the Drago players will not come out of hiding.
Get them out of there.
Yeah.
Also, a surprising number of stall players at this tournament.
Yep, for
Oh,
sure.
sorry,
Snorlax.
I just looked at a Snorlax deck list and had a visceral reaction.
Yep.
That's
You look
so
at it and you're like,
nasty.
oh, 5 Pokemon, no energy, and 54 trainers. Excuse me, 6 Pokemon and no energy.
Six
It's
Pokemon. They
4
run
Snorlax.
Cornerstone now.
Yep. A cornerstone in case they hit something that they need to, wall out differently, and a
Gross.
Rotom as a draw engine.
No
And then it
Mimikyu is
just
surprising, TBH.
no Mimikyu, but like
But they're
I think
fine.
Cornerstone does most everything that you want Mimikyu to do, and then like I think a lot of the time, like the decks that you would use Mimikyu against, you can probably just play the standard Snorlax game against.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
I think Mimikyu. I mean, granted, Mimikyu was in the 7th place list, so we saw variations. I think it's really interesting actually when you compare the two top 8 Snorlax lists side by side. The 6th and 7th place lists are so different in terms of like the Pokemon count,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I think maybe a bit more telling to like kind of the goal of the two players.
Yeah.
You have both playing to the stall, but like where you have one that's just playing passively, just Snorlax, draw through your deck with Rotom, play your Misfortune Sisters, play
It's a much more
Airy.
active play style of like, I'm gonna get rid of your resources.
Yep.
And also, the one deck has my goat in it. What you can barely see on my phone case. That
Yep.
that Stellar Crown Diancie with Diffuse Reflection, where it does
Yep.
40 per special energy just to hate on Lugia.
It's I mean, Snorlax's one true bad matchup left is the Lugia right now, and if you for the low investment of a single jet energy
One
to a
energy.
Diancie on your bench, you too can blow up a Lugia player if you're playing stall.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think my favorite, and this is a strategy that I kind of want to try post rotation in some other decks, is this enriching energy. Like that's kind of spicy. You attach that to like you attach it, you draw, put it on your Snorlax, right? And then
penny it up.
Penny
you can
your
use
Snorlax.
It again.
Yep. That's exactly it. So I was
wait, this is hype. This is a turbo Snorlax deck. Is there a hype Snorlax deck?
So
that's crazy.
For the listeners out there, I was mentioning before this, I've been updating our Chaladon with some cards to get it to a post rotation build. I've kind of thought so. I've got the Dunsparce engine in there, right?
Yes.
We play enriching energy in there. We attach to our Dunsparce. We draw 4. We play the Dunsparce. We draw 3 and shuffle those 3 cards back in, and just do it again the next turn off.
That's
of
what
more
a lot
draws.
of Zard is doing right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a sick combo. That feels so cool because that's like if you can kind of consistently do a combo like that, at least with the Dunsparce, like that's a research. While also shuffling the cards back into your deck, you could like find the space to not have to play research in those decks and play other consistency tools. I saw like a build like that where they were running heavy Judge because it's like you don't really need to worry about like what you draw. If you're always drawing, you're almost always guaranteed to draw back into what you need, and Judge hurts your opponent more than it hurts you in those kinds of decks. So
that's right.
Cool idea. But yeah, I like seeing that that enriching energy used in this Snorlax deck. I think that's so fun. And I like that because especially because the penny loop on it that Snorlax decks are famous for makes the most use out of this card, where a lot of ace specs, right, are like a one and done thing, or they maybe aren't one and done, but they do only work for a very short time in a match,
Yeah.
Like Hero's Cape is a very like it's probably got a couple of turns out of it depending on how you use it. Your legacy energy is technically multi-use depending on like the way you use it. If you're running it in with a Wellspring Mask or like Luminion, you might get a couple uses out of it by shuffling it back in.
Well, and think of it like this: when you use it on Wellspring, you're not actually getting anything out of it because you're putting it back in the deck, and your opponent can't attack on your turn.
For sure. And so that kind of helps out with like preserving it as a both rainbow energy, and also being a if you have to leave it on something, you can still leave it on something and
Yeah.
get the one less prize advantage. But I think like enriching energy is like truly the one A spec we have right now that's a guaranteed multi-use A spec if you run it in the right decks and you play to like that deck strength, as we see here with Snorlax. Like that's kind of cool.
Well,
I just love that.
And we knew that we would be hurting for draw engines when the new format came out. I never thought it would be enriching energy to Dunsparce. But I did think that the Dunsparce would be good because it's drawing cards every single turn. And it's getting rid of your liability.
Absolutely.
So I definitely am excited to see. This actually makes me sad that I'm interested in playing a Snorlax deck.
Yo, chat,
Shout
he's
out,
building Snorlax.
Shout out to who is this? Was this Ronnie's or Ron Nelson's or who was it? Which one had the cool build?
The second, it would be 7th. Yes.
Shout out Ron Nielsen
Nielsen
for making a deck list for Snorlax that I'm actually interested in playing. I'm literally saving this.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
We're gonna run Snorlax for literally a month and like 2 weeks.
Don't worry about it.
Man.
I'm gonna roll up to the next challenge with that list, and people are going to shoot me with a gun.
Jeez.
That's cool though. It's cool to see something. Like, I know it's corny, but like it's cool to see innovation on what's perceived as such a lame archetype of deck. You know?
Yeah.
Because this makes it more of a control deck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the biggest complaint people have always had with Snorlax is like the fact that Snorlax it just doesn't let you play the game.
Yeah.
And
you could be playing Subway Surfers while you're playing this game.
Yeah, it does it in a way that like even Pidgeot Control doesn't engage with. Like at least with Pidgeot Control, there is a genuine back and forth between the players who are playing the game. Pidgeot Control players are not, just always stalling you out. They are achieving different goals at different stages in the game depending on the opponent.
That's right.
Snorlax is almost always just gusting something that you don't want in the active into the active, and then sitting there and saying, all right, your move. So draw pass becomes a thing a lot of the time. So it is really cool to see like a Snorlax list play very control style, and now you can see that too in Rhodes' history as a player. Actually, I was just like looking at their player profile and Limitless. They've got a third place. They got third place at
in
Lille regional. Earlier this year.
Interesting.
Enriching, unfortunately, was not in the format at the time. I don't believe.
Right. That was Surging Stars.
And so that was that's a little unfortunate, obviously, but
they played Prime Catcher here.
Yep.
Rather than like anything other than your cape. Which is cool.
No cape. They're playing a gust heavy, like, which I know I just said like gusting is annoying, but it's more of the like active
gust to do something.
Yes, it's an active play style, and they have other finishes with day 2 results with this Snorlax list, and they have done even like control lists before with like Pidgeot Control. So it's a player who's very fundamentally aware of the deck and the archetype. Overall cool to see. Kind of a surprising showing for Snorlax, a surprising showing for Lost Box and for Golden Go.
A little bit of Maridon still. A top 32 Gouging Fire. Shout out to Jose. I know this is not his deck and it's not him playing, but it's still like in my mind. I see Gouging Fire. I think Jose, and I think we should only be seeing him play that deck.
Nino's deck. Nino's game on day 2 was actually really cool to watch.
Was that one streamed?
Yes, that one was round 11 against Callum Thomas playing a Lugia Archeops deck, and that was. It's just, again, it's always cool to watch Gouging Fire decks in action because the deck has like it has such an interesting flow to it.
Yeah.
The more that I've played it a little bit, and the more that I've like watched the games with it, especially like it got highlighted twice on stream at EUIC this year. Like it does a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I think a lot of players who have pointed out it's not just a big basic turbo deck. It is not red Miraidon or red what is
Raging
it?
Bolt.
Red Raging Bolt or red Roaring Moon. You know, it's its own thing. It has a lot more nuance to it.
It's not nearly as linear as those decks, which is crazy.
Absolutely not.
And I think the card to thank for that is Delphox V.
Yes, like Jose highlighted in our interview, you know, the Delphox is surprisingly like key in this deck, a lot more than a lot of people think, and it doesn't ever feel bad to just have to get energy on it just to lost zone a couple energy, because like if you take out 2 key KOs using that, like
that's good.
Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that really is just it.
It's also 120 and 120. It's not like it's hitting a lot more stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's I mean, you can even go a turn against like Pult lists and take out 2 Lokes with that. Like that's clutch.
Yeah.
So
super
cool. Always happy to see that one do well.
Absolutely. But
Lugia,
like actually, I'm okay with Lugia not doing well.
Yeah, I was like, Lugia kind of fell off again. I think a lot of people were hype on like a Lugia resurgence, and it was 5%.
The Regigigas just doesn't do that much for it versus. So like, think of it like this: if you're a careful Lugia player, you don't want to blow 4 energy on just blowing up a guy like 1 Dragapult.
Yeah,
but then you also don't want to use 2 double turbos, because then you're not doing the damage you need.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Therein kind of lies the dilemma with Regigigas. And I think it's also like a product of the meta. We might see Lugia do very well at the next regional. You never know. It's also, to be fair, it's not a deck that Europe likes to play.
It isn't. That's true.
Europe is really big on Gardevoir. It's really big on Dragapult. It's getting bigger on Miraidon right now, but like it is not a European playstyle.
Yeah, for sure.
Which it's so cool to see that there's like locales where certain playstyles are better. Like I remember a format or 2 ago, like at European regionals, you'd always be like, "Ooh, we're gonna see some Mew gameplay," because like that's where all the Mew players are, is Europe.
Yeah.
And now it's like that with Guardy and some Dragapult, and I guess Golden Go to the same extent.
It seems like Golden Go's gotten popular in Europe. It kind of seems like
they just like to draw cards, and I get it.
It seems like this Cloth Terapagos deck actually is maybe more popular in Europe than it is in the US. I don't know for sure, but I think it's I've seen maybe more of it here and in some of the European regionals this season than I have like compared to the North American regionals. So it's, you know, again, going back to that, it happens with that deck. I think it was also a product of like the locale. One thing that also caught my eye kind of, so actually with before I switch to that, yeah, the Lugia's best showing was 41st at this event. Not even any in the top 32. Lugia, unfortunately, is I don't think Lugia is going to come out at the end of F block rotation looking too great. Unfortunately, the deck,
it's had its time.
Yep, it had its busted time. It had its resurgence. You know, I think we can send Lugia off now. You know,
I think we can take him out back.
Yep.
And just
it's
leave
all right.
him there.
Yep, it's all right. Watch the sunset. Look at the flowers. You know.
Yeah. Truly. Call it a day.
What I was gonna say was a really cool deck that caught my eye. 9th place, unfortunately missing out on that top 8. Oscar Madsen had a Pult Zard list.
Zard.
That
it's silly. I like it.
You know what? It's still a solid strategy. It's still not bad. I think they balanced it pretty well. They went for the pretty standard Pult list that you go right now with the 4 Dreepy, 4 Drakloak, 2 Dragapult, and then they went
Normally you pay 3
2.
Dragapult, but that's a
Yeah,
cut that you can make, I think.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think if you're going to include a second like big attacker like this, 2 Charmander, 2 Charizard, I
You're
would
good.
maybe want like 1 Charmeleon in there for safety's sake.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it seems also like they're not using candies to really try to evolve Pult if they can help it. They seem like they want to use the
that
candies.
tempo play.
Mm-hmm. Especially with only 3 rare candy, that seems
And with
even
no
more like
Pidgeot, you
Yep.
Sorry, I'm not meaning to talk
No.
over you.
No, absolutely. I think that's the coolest part actually. The no Pidgeot, you're going for Lokes to draw. Like that's sick.
Yeah. It's a slower build. You do a
Mhm.
lot more of your tempo plays, and then jars are really just there probably for the end of game, like big explosive KO.
Yeah,
I imagine
for sure. Probably, but I like the fact that like Zard works both as like an energy acceleration engine
Mm-hmm.
early game, so you can Zard and get energy onto like a Loke and then evolve a Loke, and then you can go and use that Pult, as your attacker, while the Zard just kind of sits there, and your opponent knows that they're gonna have to deal with it at some point. So they can
Yep.
try to play, against the Zard without the Pult being there, but then if they do that, then the Pult is coming in later at some point too. Like they have to handle like a couple of big attackers. So there's no easy solution. But it's a deck with a lot of moving parts, I think, but definitely one that works.
Super cool to look at. It's something that came out when Dragapult was first talked about.
Yeah.
I also don't take this seriously, but it's cool to see it right there at the cusp of top 8, even if it missed out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man. Let's transition to some of the cooler matchups. Some other niche stuff, because we talked about the major stuff. We talked about like some of the best performing decks. Let's talk about a couple of other ones that are interesting to look at, that were featured on the stream, on the official Pokemon TCG live stream. Do you want to start with day 1 or day 2?
Let's just go with day 1 first. I think
day
1. I think day 1's a good starting point for that.
Absolutely. And I think the clear immediate one is round 2, Caleb Gettimer on Miraidon versus Henry Chow, our previous champion, betraying the Gardevoir EX deck and opting to go for Golden Go. So even Chow was tempted by Golden Go and succumbed to it. It's very interesting how quickly he was just like, let me try this. Because Henry Chow's record, like, I want to say he's played exclusively Gardevoir for the last several tournaments.
I believe almost entirely this season. Let me double check.
I think when I looked at his stats last, it was all this season. He's only been on Gardevoir, which is just impressive to see. Like, that's a good indicator of how well positioned Golden Go was, is that even Chow was like, ooh, let me pick this up because this will be good.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Henry Chow, I mean, to be fair, Henry Chow is also like a lot newer to like the bigger tournament scene for Pokemon too, especially compared to I think that maybe is one of the coolest things to highlight about him as a player, is the fact that in such a short time he's amassed probably one of the better records for like a couple of seasons in general.
Yeah.
But to just suddenly like go from Gardevoir into Goldango, I'm wondering if there's a story there. I really do.
I would
honestly.
love to know. I would love to know that.
But yep, I think that was a cool match. I got a chance to watch that one.
Anything stand out to you?
I mean, I think the matchup was just kind of a story in how Miraidon just kind of eats Goldango, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Goldango has a very hard time into Miraidon because it's got a lot of big, beefy dudes that, they're not a ton of HP, but Goldango has to drop 5 energy against most of the main attackers in Miraidon, except for like the Raikou if they don't like charm it, and charm is absolutely a solid answer for Miraidon against Goldango, just because it forces Goldango to put up another energy against some of those dudes. So
Right.
that, and then hands exists, and
Hands is so
Goldango's
good.
worst enemy Goldango's worst enemy is hands. Like just give me ghouls doing nothing against that guy.
Yeah, well, because that's also your Greninja as well. Like you're taking 2 prizes off of that guy. If they play Luminion down, that's 3 prizes. Like, just it limits your options so much when you have to deal with Iron Hands. So I could definitely see that being a problem. I'm really interested in seeing a little further down the round 5 Grant Shen on Goldengo versus Toshihiro Kai on Giratina Lost Zone Box. Is his deck or is their deck published anywhere?
Don't know. Let me see.
Because like that's an interesting pick.
Yeah. Toshihiro doesn't have Toshihiro didn't have any results at this, unfortunately. Certainly no day 2 results. This list that they're playing though was a Giratina Lost Zone list. Well, it's probably pretty similar to one that they ran, because that back in April of last year. So I mean, that's like a year ago almost. So I'm sure some stuff's changed, but it's also Giratina Lost Zone. I don't think the deck can afford to change a ton of what it does.
Yeah, it doesn't change a lot.
I would definitely be interested to see if like a list was published anywhere, but I don't know that they have socials or anything like that we would be able to see pictures or lists published to, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, but it's still cool to see Giratina show up and show out. I like Giratina a lot. It's one of my favorite Pokemon. It's actually a funny story. It is I had, back when my wife and I were still friends, I actually commissioned her to paint a shiny Origin Form Giratina piece for me, and it's on my flexing shelf. Let me grab it for the audio listeners. Sorry about it, but the inside scoop's on YouTube, so come and have a look. And this is the piece she painted. It's absolutely stunning. She killed it.
That's so cool.
Because I love Giratina. I love the shiny art on it. It's gorgeous.
So
she killed it. She also has totally undercharged me for this.
Oh man, yeah, no, that's super cool. It's Giratina Lost Zone boxes, like we said.
It's got a special spot in my heart. It's one of the first like really cool decks that I saw in the game that was like, oh, this is a crazy deck.
It does a lot of really cool things really well. I think unfortunately right now the biggest issue with it is that it's too slow to be effective. If you want to play a slow Lost Zone box, you play Sablezard right now, probably.
That's right, baby.
And if you want to play a fast one, I guess you play the Pikachu one. But both of those are like speedier than Giratina is, and
the value from something like Star Requiem isn't as there, and 280 isn't as important of a damage number.
No,
because 280 is no longer knocking out all of your big like opponents. Like 280 doesn't do it for Zard. 280 doesn't do it for Dragapult. Like 280 just isn't cutting it anymore. So you'd have to start Requiem like every turn.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that Giratina for the last I honestly for the last season has just been kind of relegated to just the corner. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Not every deck can spotlight all the time. I remember there was at least a time where it was like huge, and it was so
the regionals last year. It was huge. That was the tournament to play Giratina V-Star. Yeah, because that's when my famous run-in with Isaiah Bradner playing it.
Yeah,
he smoked me. It was so embarrassing.
I mean, that's the Bradner effect. The dude is
He's
the
too
dude's
good.
insane. He's way too good.
Some might even say too good to be true. Just kidding. We're not going to talk about that. It was confirmed. It was confirmed, by the way, that he was not cheating at this last tournament. Even if he did cheat, there's like, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he did not cheat and have for those of you who don't know, there was accusations that he had played a rigid band in his deck and then switched it out on day 2, just because some guy on Twitter was like, "Oh, what happened to your rigid band?" And he was just wrong the whole time. He has since confirmed, "Hey, my bad. I didn't actually see the card. I was tweaking. My bad." So don't circulate that, please. Just shut it down, because it's taking away energy that could go towards more important discourse in this game. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think of
that stuff.
Of all the drama like that people have started over players, this is like the most egregious. Just kind of like, why it was unnecessary. I think. Yeah.
Which, to be fair, like, as much respect as I have for Isaiah Bradner, like he has in the past like had a couple of shady moments, or like appeared to be cheating, or even if it wasn't like unintentional, he has made some illegal plays. At least one that I can think of where he grabbed an illegal set of cards off of an Irida. But like, I'm not going to continue to hold that against him forever, right? Like, I can't imagine he's a serial cheat. Like, if he was a serial cheater, he would not consistently get top placements. He would wind up on stream enough that he would get caught. But he is just a good player, and I think it's unfair to make allegations like that when in reality he's just good.
For sure.
Anyway, Lost Tina.
Actually,
we've got time for one more deck list, and I think I know the one that you want to talk about.
I mean, I'm always gonna shout it out, but day one, we got to see a round 8, a Hisuian Zoroark V-Star deck. Of all the decks that I had on like my EYC bingo card, this deck was not on it, and I'm honestly happy about that. This was a happy surprise for me to just like be able to, like tune in to the stream on Friday afternoon at that point, like kind of finishing up my work day. I've got the stream on the computer in front of me, and the match starts going, and I'm like, yo, it is my boy.
Wait. This also got 16th at Thailand.
Yes.
Yo!
Yeah, it's I don't think I mean, to be fair,
it's a bad deck.
Okay. It's not a good deck. It's definitely not a good deck. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star is not good.
This guy's not even playing an A-spec.
Yeah, let's just start with
it's not that's
good.
A max belt. I'm tweaking.
But that said, it's a fun deck.
It's so cool. It's a turbo deck. It's a Zoroark. Yeah, it's cool.
When I first started playing, this was one of the first decks I built, like when I first started playing physically with cards, because I started with live, and I played live for a few months, and I was like, I want to get into like playing in person. That seems way more fun than just sitting at my computer for a few hours every day, and playing the game. I want to play against real people. That seems fun. I was like, what are the decks out there? And so I'm like, I already knew like about the decks, and I'm like, well, I want to dip my toes into this. I don't know how to, go into this, and I don't want to like go full force if I'm not going to actually enjoy it. What's like a budget minded deck? And I saw this, and I was like, yo, the cards in this list are like altogether like $20. I was like, at the time, all the cards were like $20 together.
Oh,
and,
no,
like,
it's still like $22.
Yeah, it's still incredibly cheap. I think the most expensive things in it at the time that I built were Battle VIP Pass and Iona.
Yeah.
And I was even able to actually get my hands on some copies of those for like mega cheap. I found there was a flea market near me that I went to that I knew some people sold Pokemon cards there. So I went to one of the stalls there, and the guy had like 25 cents per card bulk bins.
That's pretty good.
There were like, I found like 8 copies of like Battle VIP and 8 copies of Iona there, which at the time were like both about $3 a card. Right? Yeah, they were crazy expensive. So I was like, yo, I just like got the most massive discount on this deck ever. And I
True.
bought like all 8 copies of both because I was like, well, shoot, if I do decide to get into this, like this is a it's Penny's investment, you know, like if I don't like it, then whatever. But if I do, now I've got other stuff for other things.
There you go.
And so that's what I did.
There's also something to be said for like the turbo deck as like
oh yeah,
babies, like the gateway drug into Pokemon. Because when I first started, my first deck I ever built was like Astral Radiance format to Lost Origin format, Darkrai V-Star.
Yeah.
And that deck rocked. It was so cool.
The Darkrai V-Star deck was a lot of fun. I remember at least like trying it out on live and just enjoying that. So like I can only imagine in person like playing that. But yeah, man, like I got into this and I was like, I think the list that I ran was like aside from like I think I went like 4-3 on the Zoroark line. I ran like 4 Klefkis in it at the time because like there wasn't a lot of I think at the time, even though Dodrio had just come out, a lot of people weren't running the Dodrio in it.
Right.
And the Klefki was actually, it was also because Lost Box was like very popular at the time.
True.
And Klefki just hardwalled that. I had like so many free setup games. that felt great. Even into
not
like
selecting flowers.
Pretty much. I mean, even into like the Charizard builds, it gave me like a fighting chance on the early turns when I could do that against like a Rotom and just set up like the Zoroarks on the back on the back in the bench, and then you just turbo through the deck, ditch the Gengars, get him back later, and now you've got a really easy way to have damage. I ran like the Gapejaw Bogs because that was the stadium for it at the time. Nowadays though, and this gameplay highlights it extremely well. We go for the Area Zero and we go for the Radiant Charjabug. Yep, and the Radiant Charjabug is so cool in there, just because that's
he looks like a
energy
boss.
Attached. He chills out there, and every time you attach an energy, he does what Gapejaw Bog does, pretty much. So it's kind of chill. It's kind of cool. I also like how well Area Zero synergizes with this deck, right? Like it opens up 3 extra bench spaces. The Terrapagos are sitting there, and then like if your opponent bumps that, you just ditch your Gengar.
Get rid of your Gengars. Like, and then bring the boys back.
It's like the freest like way to say, oh, okay, well, we'll just get rid of these guys and bring them right back. Like
it's so cool.
And then if you've already played a damage pump, that means that like the damage stays in play. So the Gengars already did something. Like,
man, I want to build this just for kicks and gigs.
I did have it built out for a little while, I think, starting in Stellar Crown format, and I played it a little bit, but it still didn't compete with like the rest of the metagame at the time. Yeah. I deconstructed it again, but it was fun for like,
it's just cool.
A month probably. It was a lot of fun to just like, I was like, oh, I can revisit like my first deck, baby's first deck. I can have some fun with this again. It was cool. It was absolutely super cool.
That's how I felt when Pokestop Darkrai was really good too, with like the cross switchers and battle VIP passes.
Oh my god, it's so sick. It's just fun when you get to see like your favorite list come back and do something, and like also just say this guy like hits for like a lot now,
like a bajillion damage.
I think you max out at 430 with a double turbo attached and a bench plus active full of
it's 5 times 9. 5 times 9 is 45 plus another 50. So you're hitting 500.
You're 9 times 5, so that's 450 and then a minus 20.
Oh,
from
true,
the turbo.
So 430. That's still enough for everything in the format.
Yep. That's enough.
480 with a belt.
Yep. I mean, honestly, you don't even need the belt because like for 450 or 430, you're still like knocking out a Caped Zard. Like
that's pretty good.
Caped Zard doesn't exist anymore, but like
the only thing you're missing is like Tyranitar.
I mean, I guess, but like
that's not a real card.
Tyranitar never was real, unfortunately. That card isn't real. This is just cool. I liked seeing this. It unfortunately
got smoked.
Bombed. It did what most of the time happens with this deck is it takes a very early lead. It takes anywhere from 2 to 4 prizes, and then it gets Iono dropped against it and flounders because I think both times, very unfortunately, the player overextended with the V-Star power early when it would have benefited them much later. But at the same time, they kind of needed it early at the moments that they used it. So it is what it is.
It's so enticing to just hit the button, though. And I get it.
Oh my God. Being able, I love like dropping a research and then dropping your Phantom Star in the same turn. 14 cards?
14 cards!
14 cards? That's so cool. That's even better than Squawkabilly in research.
You can do all three! Oh, wait, no, you cannot do all three at the same time.
You can't. That would be diabolical.
That would be evil.
That would be suddenly, you know what, though? We put a
played an expanded, we put in a Crobat V, we put it in a Dedenne GX.
Yep.
Deck out any percent speed run.
in standard, put a 1/1 line of this in your Sarrel Edge decks. Turbo even faster with Sarrel Edge.
That's kind of dumb and also kind of heat.
It's kind of heat, but like Palkia existing and Radiant Greninja existing means I still don't think I would ever do it. But it's a fun idea.
You get to draw cards. You get to draw cards.
You do get to draw cards.
Cool.
That's very cool. I do get to flex on Yu-Gi-Oh players, so I mean that's always a benefit.
Yu-Gi-Oh player draw a card challenge. Level impossible.
Say goodbye to a quarter of your deck unplayable before you could draw 2 cards. I'm looking at you, Pot of something or other. Pot of Greed Nerf card.
Well, sure. Oh, man. But yeah, crazy tournament. Crazy tournament. Crazy finals. Crazy showing of different decks. I'm really interested to see how this is going to shape the meta. What's the next tournament coming up? I don't remember exactly.
Toronto. I looked at it earlier, and I think it's Toronto.
Okay.
Upcoming.
Do you know when?
No, sorry. Vancouver. My bad, not Toronto. That's right. We already had Toronto. I looked at the Canadian flag and I just said Toronto. I'm sorry, Canada, if you're listening.
As long as we don't get a Quebec.
I'm so sorry.
I'm okay with that. I'm not sorry. I am sorry.
Yeah. Actually, and to kind of go along with that, the same weekend is also regional Fortaleza in Brazil. Brazil gets its third regional third big event for the year. I was going to say regional. I think technically, yeah, LEIC was a IC, so not a regional. But Brazil getting a third event. Excuse me, no, my bad. Fourth event for the year. Fourth event. They also had Joinville. So yeah,
very interesting.
That's very cool. I mean, like it kind of makes sense. Brazil is like a very like focal point in South America.
Yeah,
I think having a main portion of your regional events being in that in a single country, especially in like one of the largest ones in South America, it makes sense. So that's really cool. 2 regionals again in the same weekend is always super hot. We love to see it.
I'm excited for what that's going to look like. Maybe the folks in Brazil will run back the Palkia V-Star deck. And maybe somebody will finally catch on to the optimal way to play Lost Zone being Sablezard.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing how this shapes the meta. Will we see Gardevoir come back? Will Lugia ever be good again? Will Golden Go just continue to dominate?
Yep.
These are all really important questions.
Absolutely. We have 4 more regionals now until rotation.
Ooh, that's scary.
It is absolutely scary, but it's so cool. It's so cool to like be coming up on rotation again. Like,
yes, it's such an exciting time.
As someone who was like kind of hyped for it like last year and having not played like a ton of E-Block, getting to like play through all of like since nearly the start of G-Block and getting to experience a lot of F-Block, man, this is cool. This is so cool.
It's an exciting time of year because this is when certain decks become really, really good, and then just in time to get kicked out of the game entirely.
Yep.
And so, and for that reason, I think it's super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
When this rotation hits, it'll be the very first rotation that I see where I will have watched every card come out that is going to be legal after rotation.
That's so
where
cool.
I will have been there when they came out, and now I'm here when they're the only ones legal.
Yeah, that's
so
super cool.
It's super exciting. I'll be sad to see F Block go. We'll have to schedule an episode just for talking about rotation. Maybe we do our top 10 or top 5 rotating cards or something like that.
I don't even know if I can fit 5. 10 is already pushing it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But we'll have to figure out something for a rotation video.
Absolutely.
For the near future. But in the meantime, do you have anything you want to talk about before we kind of wrap this episode up and move on to our bonus episode?
No, actually, I think I've covered everything that I want to talk about. If I talk anymore, it's just going to be more about Lost Zone and more about Zoroark, and I'm just going to keep us all here for another 30 minutes or hour yapping about how cool these cards are.
I so get it. I'm in the boat. And that's why we got the bonus episode, so we can talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Friendly reminder, patreon.com/terminalcreative. Please, for the low cost of 1 pack of cards. Actually, less than that, because Sword and Shield is all like $7 now. So frankly, like, you're robbing yourself if you buy packs of cards right now. But slide that on over our way. Check out the Patreon. We've got some cool stuff coming. That's how you get your first look at the stuff that we're posting and our bonus content. Speaking of content we're putting out, be on the lookout in probably like a month and a half, 2 months. For the Atlanta regional vlog that we're going to be posting. I'm really excited for that. We're going to have some cool stuff being done in Atlanta.
Super hype on
also,
that.
hopefully you'll see both of us in finals facing off against each other. We'll have to see how that goes. The Atlanta Day 2 stream. It's going to be super fun. I'm really excited about it. Keep an eye out for that video. Keep an eye out for Patreon content.
Yeah.
And just other cool stuff that's going to be going on over there. But without further ado, we're going to wrap it up here and move on to the bonus episode. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out.